When I was a seminarian here in the San Fernando Valley, not too long ago, and in a parish not too far from here, there was a priest named Father Raul. And Father Raul is from Mexico. He had been a pastor in Mexico for like 25 years. He was friends with bishops and cardinals. And then he was invited to be a missionary to Los Angeles, to the immigrants who were coming from Latin America, who were coming from Mexico, because they didn't have a priest that speaks Spanish here in the San Fernando Valley. So he came in the 80s. And so he came as a little immigrant himself, even though he had all of this great credentials and stability and comfortability in Mexico. So he came barely speaking English, an immigrant among immigrants, and he started to serve the people here. And he started one of the very first Spanish masses here in San Fernando Valley. And so I had a chance to know him right around the 50th anniversary of his priesthood, so 25 years later. And so he had been here for that long, and he started this little, he was a musician, and so he started St. Cecilia's Music Academy for the students, and he started to just share the good news, and such a joyful man. And so right around that time, for the anniversary of his 50th anniversary of priesthood, the parish took a trip to Mexico, and it was a Mexican martyr pilgrimage. And at that time, I really didn't know about the Mexican martyrs, but in the 1920s, the Mexican government was trying to take power away. They were trying to consolidate all the power, and a lot of business owners were conspiring together, and they were working together to throw out the church. Because if you could throw out the church, then you could have all the power and influence. So that's what happened. And so for probably about a decade, property was seized, churches were taken, all the sisters' convents were taken, seminaries were closed, all the property became the government's. And so they kicked out all of the religious. You had a chance you could leave, or you would be killed. You could not practice the faith anymore. So in any case, a lot of people left. Actually, we have if you go to the cathedral, there's a little chapel to Our Lady of Guadalupe, and there's a little piece of the tilma, the actual tilma that appeared to Juan Diego almost 500 years ago. There's a little piece of that tilma in the chapel right now. It was a gift from the Archbishop of Mexico to the Archbishop of Los Angeles for receiving so many of his people with such love and tenderness and care during a very difficult time. And so he wanted to extend his heart. He extended the heart of Mary in this tilma, a little piece of it. And so you can go there to pray. So, in any case, that's what was happening during this time. And so there was this priest from Spain, he was in Mexico, St. Christopher Magallanes, and so he held little underground seminaries. So he would start to teach and start to preach. And they would have mass in barns, and they would have mass out in the field in the middle of the night. And they'd say, hey, come on, go to mass. Come on, let's go. Don't turn your lights on. Keep the lights low. They would have little baptism classes in secret. And so then they would do all the baptism records in the middle of the night and put it in and hide it, all the files, because they had to keep the files, keeping it real low and undercover. So Christopher Magallanes and these other priests who were continuing to serve and to be available for the people, eventually the government caught up to them and killed them. And there's one story that I want to focus in on right now, and it all comes back. It all ties together, so stick with me. So Santo Toribio Romo, Saint Toribio Romo, he was just a poor little farmer boy. Poor little farmer boy in the middle of nowhere, Mexico, Jalisco. Just a little farming state, middle of nowhere. And so he loved God so much. So he and his sister, they used to look at a hill. And then at the top of the hill, he could imagine, he says, sister, one day I'm going to build a chapel. I'm going to build a chapel to God because it's so close to the sky. And she says, you could do it, Toribio, you could do it. And he wanted to be a priest. So he wanted to be a priest so much. His parents were so poor, they couldn't even send him to school. So if he couldn't go to school, if he couldn't learn how to read or write, how in the world was he going to be a priest? Because you had to have a lot of schooling for that. And they couldn't even afford the basic schooling. So meanwhile, his sister, Maria, they called her Kika. So Kika, she was a little older than Toribio. And so it was right around that time that there were boyfriends, or there would be guys that would come around and say, Kika. They would want to date her. She's beautiful. Now, come on, Kika. Come on, Maria. And so there was actually someone who proposed to her, and she was supposed to get married. So she was in this poor little farming village, this little farming family, and then she had this opportunity to marry this man and start her own life. But she would remember about sitting out in the field with her brother, looking up at that hill, and his heart and his desire to become a priest. And she knew that it would have been impossible. So what she decided to do was to sacrifice her life for her brother. And so she started to clean houses. She started to make tortillas, and to sell them. And so she did everything that she could do. She thanked the gentleman so much. Thank you so much for this offer, but I'm not going to be able to marry you because I have to be available to my brother and in this way, to serve God in this way. So she did. She started to work all the time. She was selling tortillas. She was cleaning houses, doing all the little odds and ends that she could. She would get some money, and she was able to put her brother through school. And then beyond hope beyond hope, he was able to become a priest. He was ordained a priest. Toribio, this little farmer from nowhere, became a priest. And he became a priest during this time of persecution. So it happened one night. He had baptized a bunch of people in the middle of the night, and he was home. It's probably 4 a.m, and so he's just really sleepy and tired, and his sister comes in because she continued to stay with him, and she continued to support Toribio, but not just Toribio, she was supporting the others. One of the other brothers became a priest, and then she started supporting others so that they could be able to receive their education. She continued to make the tortillas. Everybody knows, oh, you want tortillas? Go to Kika. Get Kika's tortillas. And so this one night, she says, brother, she says, you have to go to sleep. He says, let me just finish writing all of these logs in. I got to do my paperwork. Let me get it, and then I'll go to bed. So finally, about 4 a.m, he finally lays down. Boom, boom, boom. Where is the priest? Where is the priest? Toribio hears the assassins come in, the government officials come in. He gets up out of bed, and he sees them break into his door with the big guns, and they say, are you the priest? And his sister had come in. So Toribio says, yes, I'm the priest, but I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And Kika there, she could sense the moment. She could just feel the presence of God, and she wanted to be there. She had been there supporting her brother all the way. She wanted to support her brother right into his martyrdom, right into his sainthood. And so she stands right there with him, and she says, take courage, Toribio. Take courage. This is your moment. I'm standing here, right here with you. Come on. And so he stands there, and they shoot him, and they kill him. And as he's falling, Kika, his sister, is there to catch him in her arms. And so they used to have a thing where they would say, Que viva Cristo Rey, long live Christ the King. Not the Mexican government. Long live Christ the King. He didn't get a chance to say that as he was dying, so his sister said it. She says, Que viva Cristo Rey, for her brother who wasn't, the bullet went through his mouth because he couldn't say it as he was dying. So his sister said it. So fast forward to Father Raul. So, Toribio died, he was a martyr. Kika continued to support the others. Once the persecution finally ended, they lifted the restrictions, they were able to celebrate Mass again. The country was devastated. The church had no property. All of the seminaries were disbanded, and so they started to meet in the back of a house. They would have a little seminary in the back of a house, and everybody would just get together, a little farmhouse. They would sit there. Raul, Father Raul, I knew him, he was one of those priests. He went through the seminary in one of those little farmhouses. And who was there making tortillas for the seminarians? It was Kika. She fed Father Raul. She helped to support the next generation of priests that could continue on. Our sorrow is turned to joy. Jesus takes our sorrow, he takes our suffering, and he brings new life and new hope into it. And this hope may not be in the way that we expect, but it transforms the world. The blood of the martyrs is the seedbed of the church. Right before the evening of my ordination, Father Raul's niece, she gave me his chalice. So we'll be using his chalice for the Mass today.